Thank you, Dr. Jogan. As mentioned by Dr. Jogan, this is something that is trying to lead into innovativeness in terms of assessment delivery in courses, and my particular focus is specifically on mathematics. Right. So, as the current shift towards online courses, I think for mathematics it's pretty much very important that we do focus on the assessment, as that's the major part is where students actually do the learning. Now, as per my talk, a bit of introduction. The talk about the system that I have identified and perhaps we could use. It's known as STACK. What it actually stands for will come up in the next few slides. The ability of STACK to actually be integrated with our current learning management system, the actual engine that it has, benefits, examples, and of course, as many systems do have, the opportunities and the summary and perhaps the discussion. Now, for the introduction, now again, the faculty has decided that most of its mathematics courses will be delivered online. Now, the problem perhaps would be that, again, mathematics delivered as a fully online course is a challenge, and let alone the assessment that you have in terms of the continuous assessment that you have in the courses. So, one of the initiatives that we have taken as part of our online mathematics research group is to research and implement a system that can actually achieve all this. So, meaning that you can achieve the complexity of how you actually do mathematical assessments to actually replace the paper-based assessment. So, it's no longer giving questions on papers and then you ask the students to actually solve the questions, and then you have a Dropbox, a manual Dropbox, and students actually go and put that in the Dropbox, and then you take it out and you mark it. So, we're trying to get rid of that and be fully online. The approach that I have taken is pretty much a open source approach, so something similar to Moodle that we have. And the other thing was that while trying to identify a particular system, the ability to actually be integrated with our current learning management system, which again is Moodle. So that in that way, there is no two different systems running, and then users don't have to actually adapt to the two different types of systems. So the actual system, in short, we call it STACK, and what it means is that it is a system for teaching and assessment using a computer algebra kernel. So what it has is that it has a bit of artificial intelligence in terms of the processing power that it has. And built in the system is what we call a computer-aided assessment system, and that is for this particular system, it is specifically again for mathematics. And in order to actually get the system running, it also has its own engine, and that engine is based on what we call Maxima. Now, this is something again that is specific to maths, and what Maxima has is that it has the ability to actually transform different types of equations. You have differentiation, different types of topics that you have. It's able to actually recognize whatever is being input, it processes it, and then it actually gets the students' evaluation, the answers, whatever they have written. Now, this is something that comes parcel with STACK. Now, that's not the only system that you can use. You have Maple and some other systems that can be integrated with the actual system, which is STACK. And what actually you can find in STACK is just like, it's more like a question bank. And in that, you can actually randomly generate problems in a structured mathematical way. So this is whatever you can imagine, pretty much that's what all you can implement in this particular system, having a mathematical background. And also the ability for the system to actually recognize what the students have written in terms of mathematical expressions, and evaluate that and come to a final answer. And the most important feature that you have is that to generate feedback of whatever the students have actually entered, and that may be specific to the students' answers as well. So we'll have a brief view of that in one of the examples. So that's pretty much what STACK is. And in order to actually see how it is integrated into Moodle, we have something as such. Right, so in order for a author or a course coordinator to actually incorporate or use Stack, what it has to do or what he has to do is to actually log into Moodle. Now it works as the same way as to how you'd have to create any other question that you would have. Okay, so you have Moodle. So first step is that you have to author a new question to actually get the question from the engine. So you have the assessment block, you go to questions on the menu, and then you have to select a new type of question. Now what this particular system does is that if you have been using assessments or preparing questions, then you would find that you have multiple choice, true or false, short answer maybe, and different types. So what this system introduces is something new, and that is the opaque type of question. Now what this allows you to do is that it allows you to connect to the different engines that are sitting separate from Moodle. Again, Stack as a system is integrated with Moodle, but the engine as it is sitting away from Moodle. So you need to actually connect to the engine to actually author the questions and get the questions into Moodle. So the first step is you author a new question, you select that, and again the type has to be opaque. Then what it does is that it connects to the Stack engine, and once that is successful, you are actually inside the Stack engine. Now again, as mentioned, the computer-aided assessment system that Stack uses is that of Maxima. So it does go back to Maxima in terms of establishing the mathematical properties that might arise in a particular student's responses and so forth. And so you have that. And so again, you have the Stack engine. Now, in order to actually go about using the engine, this second step would require you to author a new question and assign it to the question bank of the Stack engine. So that's pretty much you are creating your question now in the Stack engine with its own syntaxes and so forth. And once that is successful, you simply select the question that you want to actually deploy in the quiz perhaps. So you need to do a verification whether the question has been successfully entered into the question bank, and in most of the cases that is so, it's a simple process of clicking the save button and then the question goes to the question bank. So if you have verified that it is there, then the final step is to actually deploy the question as part of quiz in Moodle. And again, this question could be of any type, not just multiple choice true or false, and we'll actually realize the benefits of Stack once we actually go to that point. And then finally what we have is that the Stack type question is finally implemented in Moodle, and so this becomes pretty much more of a cycle, and that's how you actually go about authoring and getting Stack questions into Moodle. Okay, and it's not necessary that you do this all the time. You can actually go directly to the Stack engine and prepare your question base, and then you can import that in one go using Moodle. So it depends on whether you want one question or many questions, that's up to you. So that's pretty much the cycle as to how you go about using Stack. Now the actual benefits perhaps, or even the question base that you have. Now the possible type of questions that can be developed using Stack are as follows. One of the distinctive features that you have is that it allows for a multiple part answer question, which is you have the possibility of having step-based questions, and also it enables follow-up marking. Now this is currently something that is not there at the moment in Moodle, because given the nature of mathematics, you cannot just focus all your attention on the final answer that you have. Okay, so something that is of such, having step-by-step questions, and then also assessing those step-by-step and perhaps finding out where students go wrong, this is something that is very helpful. And also it allows for the embedded questions, which means that you can have a combination of multiple choice questions and also short answer question in one question, that is. So you have a mix of multiple choice, so one part has multiple choice, the other part may ask you to actually have a fill in the blank or something as such. And of course you have the normal multiple choice, true or false, and the short answer questions that are part of Moodle. Now this is an example of a Stack question that perhaps a student will see. Now what the student sees is everything above that yellow line in a normal quiz that you have. So given this example, it says, give an example of a function which stationary point at x is equal to 5, continuous but not differentiable at x is equal to 0. And so what the student sees again is that field. Now the field is an example of a algebraic input whereby students have to write equations that signify or are very similar as to how they would write normal algebraic equation on paper. And so the student has written x into x minus 10. And so once the student has written this, there is a process, there is two more processes that the student has to take. Firstly, they need to submit whatever they have written, and a verification process takes place. So whereby the system identifies whether the syntax is correct or not. Now if the syntax is not correct, a particular error message is passed back to the user saying that you have a syntax error, perhaps you need to fix that, and then only it will be accepted. Now once the syntax error has been corrected, if there is any, then the yellow box will come up. So it says that the computer has interpreted your input as such. So the dots or the multiplication signs get replaced by the dots. So that is something that the system understands, and so it has interpreted the input as such. So once the verification has been done, you can actually submit your answer. And on submission, this is something that is given out to the user. Now, again going back to the feedback that you have, this is the feedback module that you have built in within the stack system. So it says that your answer is partially correct. So that's quite good. And then it says that your answer is differentiable at x is equal to 0, but it should not be. So this is something that is coming from the system, and it is also giving some hints saying that perhaps you should use absolute value of x so that perhaps the other part of the problem could be satisfied, which is the differentiable at x is equal to 0 part. And so coming back to this, some partial marks is awarded, and then the students can actually move on. So given the fact that you have online assessments, this is the feedback that you really want in terms of the student's point of view. This is instant feedback that you are getting upon the submit button, and it's also telling you where all you have gone wrong and also where you could actually improve on. So this is something very powerful of the stack system. And it's not just that you have A as incorrect and B as, so in terms of the multiple choice, it's not that this is correct and this is incorrect. So coming down to actual business in terms of mathematics, you are getting reliable feedback on whatever you're doing wrong or right. And again, looking at that particular question, now in a traditional approach in terms of, if you get that on assignment in terms of paper-based, what a particular tutor or lecturer might do is that firstly, given again the feedback that the student has, that is x into x minus 10, you would actually, or the lecturer would actually check whether the answer is algebraically equivalent to the solution sheet that he or she has. And then if it is not, then perhaps the student has not factorized or given in its simplest form. So perhaps the lecturer has to do that to see whether the solution that you have on their paper is actually equivalent to the solution that the student has. So a bit of a manual process. Now in the approach that the system takes, and something that I must stress out is that the stack approach is more like an objective testing system. So it's more like testing the objects that are present inside the solution or rather the input, rather than testing the entire thing. So somewhere along the line, if you are true or if you are correct, then it is able to identify, and that's how the partial marks are actually assigned to the student. So it's not that simply that the answer should be whatever is there, and that only you get 1 out of 1 or 0 out of 0. So it's more like testing whatever is in the solution, and then whether it is right or not, depending on that you get appropriate marks. So again, going back, you have the input in such a format. Stack is able to interpret that input, and then based on that input, you are given specific feedback to the actual question and the answer. So again, this is a distinctive feature of Stack. Now, some of the benefits that perhaps lies with the system is, first of all, again, the ability to be integrated with the Moodle. And again, we have been facing the problem that people are not so keen to actually go into new systems. So perhaps having this being integrated into Moodle is a plus point, saying that people don't have to actually look at some other type of system to author new questions. So what we say in technical terms, it's more like a plugin. You plug and play and then that's it. And again, the other benefit is that the option of having multiple attempts and the ability to actually award partial credit for all those multiple attempts that you have. And also the mathematical sophistication that we already know, including the different types of questions and the response specific feedback. And also something that currently is not available is requesting for a work solution that the teacher or the lecturer has put on Moodle for that particular question. So if the student has finally given up, I can't do this anymore, you can actually request for a completed work solution and then the student is provided with that solution. And this is only until the student requests for it, it's not that it automatically pops up. So if you feel that you need it, then you can go ahead and actually request for the solution. And also mathematics uses latex, and those who are fluent in latex, you can actually use this to author question. And the other thing is the potential response trees. Now what this is that you have all the multiple responses that perhaps you would expect for a particular question. So given that we know that this question is as such, and students are pretty much in that area that you are expecting certain feedback, you can put that inside your response tree and then you can give partial marks as to what a particular student should be there for his or her input. Now some of the opportunities that you have is that the most significant barrier of using the system, even though it is open source, is the difficulty in trying to install Stack on its own. Now that's something separate from trying to integrate it with Moodle. So with the help of Dhiraj, I was able to actually, or we were able to implement the system and also integrate it with Moodle. So that's not a barrier for us, but in the international community, that's something that they are facing difficulty with. And that will lead us to the last point, which is to actually the contribution that you have for online forums, since many are not able to use it. So it's something similar to what Moodle was some 5 or 6 years ago, that hardly anybody was using it. We tried it, we developed it, and now we see that nearly half the world is actually using it. And also somewhat difficulty in authoring the questions, and perhaps the interface, again, even though you are going into a new system, the interface is alright, but perhaps someone or some might still say that the interface will not be so appealing in terms of getting the questions done. And some usage worldwide, there are a few universities in the UK using it, in Japan as well, Finland, and this system is also available in 2 or 3 languages. You have Finnish and Japanese. And perhaps our university, if we are able to successfully do this, will implement this in our mathematics courses that are about to come online. So in summary, online assessments is all about computer-based mode of delivery, and I believe Stack achieves just that. The advantages would include more authentic, interactive or innovative question types, not sticking to multiple choice or true or false, especially in mathematics, and potentially more efficient given the powerful feedback feature that the system might have, so you are not relying 2 or 3 weeks over a period of time to actually get the feedback there. It's there instant, and also the ability to actually integrate it with Moodle. And for mathematics, successful implementation and testing could result in the pedagogical dream of mathematician, and that is that skills in mathematics mean skills in solving mathematical problems rather than merely memorizing concept definitions and theorems. And that brings me to the end of my talk. So that's something that the video had, which is about 5 or 6 minutes long, that perhaps does not satisfy the time frame that we have here.
Perhaps you could email it to
Yes,
Professor
definitely.
Watanabe.
And again, why we actually choose this system, let me emphasize more, is that let's say, for example, in MA 101, now we have an online component there, and we did a quiz, but that quiz was pretty much restricted to multiple choice or true or false. Now, having a mathematical quiz based on multiple choice and true or false, some may argue that it's not the right way to go for. And one argument that one of my colleagues, this tutor in maths, is that when you have maths questions as multiple choice, you are already giving one of the answers as to be the correct answer. So it's more like reverse engineering that the students can employ. That you take that answer, you plug it into the equation and see whether that's appropriate or not. So it's either that or in true or false you have guessing. And in not all the mathematical courses this is feasible. Some are based on pure mathematics where you do theory, proofing and all that, and that's where the multiple based questions actually come in place. It's not that you have that and then multiple choice question A, B, C, D, that this is the proof of that particular question. It does not work like that, and perhaps most of our lecturers will actually have resistance to moving online then if you are not able to implement such a system.
Thank you, Deepak. Any other questions, comments? No, we'll think. Oh, sorry, yeah. Not okay.
For your students, they do need to use maths for figuring out sort of damages claims and things, and it's a real area of weakness for them and an area of weakness for teaching. And so this sounds really interesting, but also I'm not a mathematician, I don't know latex and so on. Is this a system which non-mathematicians who are computer competent can use, or
they could. There is a bit of learning in terms of the text system is concerned. Now it has its own syntax as like any other system would have. So you need to know a bit basic way as to how to go about using stack, and that's about it. So it's how it works is that you have a question, you would have a feedback to that question, the teacher's answer, and then you could actually identify all the possible solutions that perhaps the students would do. And you could put that, you could assign specific messages to that, perhaps you can assign specific marks to that and so on. So it's not that a steep learning curve that you have to go through, just the basic in order to actually survive in the system. So nothing extensive, but something that, basic that you need to know.
Okay, thank you very much, Deepak.